Hello. Tonight we're going to talk about the rise and fall of Toys R Us and how the once iconic toy company is basically hemorrhaging right now and in the process of closing every one of its stores. So, very sad ending to what founder Charles Lazarus built back in 1948 as a baby furniture store out in Washington, D.C. So you've got a 70-year history of an organization that is just radically mismanaged at the end with a greed-centered, um, I guess, nucleus of leaders that their intention wasn't really to continue and fight and take back their share of the market from Amazon and Walmart. Their intention was to cash in, make as much as you can, and move on to the next venture. So, give you a little bit of a timeline and go into some of the releases that came out. I think as basically kind of smoke and mirrors that the CEO at the time, who recently stepped down, had released to, obviously keep the waters calm, but it was all a facade. The company had no desire to stay afloat, and this was the way that the folks involved were going to see the biggest return on their investment. Pathetic. So we go back to Charles Lazarus, 1948, Washington, D.C. Started the company with baby furniture, and obviously with the ancillary things and that with baby furniture are the rattles, the toys, the little stuffed animals, the mobiles, and as the kids that purchased the furniture got older, the obviously the merchandise catered to those folks as well. So he wanted to meet the need of the baby boomers, the post World War II folks coming home, settling down, having their families, growing their families. So Lazarus, his vision was to be that kind of that corner toy store that kids could go to with their parents and play around and of days gone by. So one of the things that Lazarus wanted to do was ultimately have the company go public, which he saw in 1978. He was able to become publicly traded as an organization, and Lazarus stayed on board until 1994. At that time, he stepped aside, and to give you an idea of the structure, you've got this guy in charge from 1948 to 1994. From 1994 through 2018, there's been 4 different CEOs that have come and gone. It's just it's a comedy of errors. Unfortunately, it all boils down to the P&L column, but these folks were not in it for anybody but themselves, in my opinion, only, in doing some research. So we get back in 1978 when Lazarus is, when Toys R Us becomes a publicly traded company, and they're firing on all cylinders. They're just doing great. They've got control of the market. Now fast forward to 2005, where Lazarus again stepped down in '94, but in 2005, the company was purchased by Bain Capital out of Boston. So they became a private company again. Obviously, more money to be made. They were at the top of their game, and the holding firm, purchased them for a substantially large sum of money. Year after year after year, they're seeing their foothold loosen with the rise of Jeff Bezos with Amazon and Walmart's online presence. The once giant Toys R Us is having a hard time maintaining their piece of the pie. So they knew things needed to be changed, and the problem they were running into is, as profitable as they were, they still had a huge note to pay off, and the capital firm Bain was sucking that money dry and pulling that revenue back away from Toys R Us. So you've got a dollar coming in and $2 going out to pay for past debt. It was a model built to fail. At this point now, the creditors are starting to lean on Toys R Us to say, look, we need to see that you guys are legit, that you guys are going to be players in this industry. We can't continue to lend, and they were getting threats that they were going to again be they wouldn't be fiscally solvent. They couldn't run the organization. They would have had to file, which is ultimately what happened. They filed Chapter 11. And the really sour note that I have on the Chapter 11 filing is 5 days before the announcement, this new CEO, Brandon, takes a $2.8 million bonus check. So, it certainly doesn't leave a good taste in my mouth, and I didn't even work there, so I can only imagine when the news of this went through the rank and file of how upset these folks were and how their motivation was in the tank. Brandon cites that, hey, look, we need to reinvent ourselves. We need to become more of a boutique shop. We need to get better customer service. And in my opinion, all lip service. All things that he knew the folks wanted to hear, but wasn't really prepared to deliver that. I'm firmly convinced that his intention was to keep this going as long as he could, to step down with a severance, and to have the capital firm out of Boston absorb the loss through the filing. So we're in again in 2015. They're looking at a way to become more profitable. Analysts in the industry say, hey, look, it can be done. You just need to get smaller. You need to get better customer service. We don't need these huge big box toy stores. Scale it down. So really never had the opportunity to do that. So they looked at having back in 2016 ways in which they can restructure. 2017 they said, hey, look, we're really gonna take a deep dive into if in fact we have to lay some folks off. And again, speculatory, they're saying this, but that really they're going to use that Christmas as their make or break. And they had announced previously that we're looking to just cut 182 stores and maybe about 4,500 employees just to drop in the well. Well, it's a lot of employees. So Christmas comes and goes in 2017. They have a terrible season. Amazon and Walmart clean up, and the point in time where they make most of their money, they didn't. So the announcement comes down that soon after, yeah, look, it's going to be up from 182. We're going to end up closing all 800 stores, and we're going to be laying off about 33,000 people. So with the layoffs of the rank and file, these folks are looking at hopefully getting retail jobs again. And I guess the bright spot in all of this is Walmart and TJX and some of these freestanding organizations can look to expand and buy some of these places up, and then bring back some skilled labor that has a retail background. But in reality, it's pretty bleak. However, part of the terms of the settlement is a $470 million payoff going back to the holding firm. So leadership will be compensated during this closing and liquidation. And unfortunately, as of Saturday afternoon, Jeffrey the Giraffe, one of the iconic figures, was auctioned off at the office in New Jersey. So very sad ending to a once great institution. Management was not in communication with the rank and file. Leadership told everybody what they wanted to hear. And unfortunately, the CEO that they brought in, who had came from an athletic director's role at University of Michigan, brought Domino's prior to that position public. When he got to Toys R Us, with the goal going public, never saw it to fruition. I think he was more of a guy set up to say, "Hey, ride us to the end of the rail, and we'll get off here." Very disappointing, very sad to see. I think it was a horrible example of how leadership communicates to its employees, and again, the end of an iconic institution. Have a great night, everybody.